Oh, Mike, got something on the... Yeah, fix your face. You've got some founder's disease.
Was that...
Still got it, baby.
That could be top 5 worst.
There's a lot of competition. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we're talking about Season 7, Episode 6, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. How you doing, Mike? We've been off for a week. We had some time off. We haven't talked in weeks.
I know. It's been a while. It's been good, Keith. I actually have, there's a lot happening. It's 4th of July when we're recording this. Not feeling super patriotic.
What could possibly make you think that?
Look, to try to I guess to find the only spin I can find, at least for now, I can celebrate my right to not be happy with things.
Fair enough. I mean, TikTok on that.
Yeah,
TikTok,
true. But we did have a little bit of vacation. We went up to the Pocono Mountains. We got a little Airbnb with a huge yard, and we let the dog just go nuts and just collect all of the ticks and then pick them off one by one.
All the ticks.
So that was fun. Also, this is for another show, but I'll share this. I auditioned for a few plays, and I was enjoying that because we had talked about this off air, I believe. Not singing, not having to worry about singing is really refreshing. Thing is I chose some plays I'm a little young for, I'm not quite right for, and I knew that going in. And so I didn't book these plays.
Right. And
so it's weird to have the feeling of having enjoyed just the experience of auditioning and preparing, and it really slayed these auditions. I was very prepared, felt very good about them. But you still get that, even when you know you're not right, and you're probably not going to book it, you still that rejection. It's that old familiar feeling.
Yeah. And even when the reason you didn't make it was you were too young and attractive for the part.
It's still, you still want to eat Twizzlers at the end of that night.
I hear that. I feel like we're all going to need to eat some Twizzlers.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sort of yeah. So, luckily, wrong word, the universe and the country are giving me plenty of other things, bigger picture things to find my perspective, if you will.
That is true. The perspective of the privilege of just regular failure.
Yeah.
Not being, disappeared off the streets or stuff like that. Anyway.
But Keith, you had a more, I would say, a more on-brand little vacay.
I did. I had spent a little over a week up in Vermont with my folks. Did two things. One is I went to my older brother, Sean, friend of the show, former Star Trek sound editor, went to the reunion of his band, 5 Seconds Expired, up in Vermont.
Very cool.
I should have loaded some clips, but I didn't. We'll put them somewhere on social media. Anyway, fantastic. What a great show it was. Really, really fun. But then the next weekend, and I'm thinking, I'm going to pitch this out to you, dear listeners, viewers, whatever, about doing a Patreon exclusive episode about my experience at Star Trek Fort Ticonderoga. Now, everybody is gone. Everybody's already seen it. Everyone's covered it. So it's not anything that I'm expecting to be a huge draw. But I did get to go and take the original series set tour, and I was also up there because a certain Captain / Denny Crane was up there that weekend as part of a little mini convention. So I got to do this.
It's coming.
I got to do this. I got to do this.
Awesome.
No, wrong picture. Awesome.
Very awesome.
But also, I got to do...
Oh boy, that's not it.
Oh my God.
Oh, there's...
Also, there we go. I got to take a picture with Shat himself. Wish I'd sucked it in a little bit before that picture, but let me tell you, those pictures were going real hot, real fast.
So did you have you made a vow that you were not going to pay for a picture?
I did. Well, I did not, but that is my oldest friend, Nate. We've been friends since we were 4 years old, 6 years old, something like that. He arranged the tickets. So I did get to take a picture with Shatner on
the depth of field of that
Enterprise.
is funny. So tell me, how far away from the Shat are you there?
I mean, it's the set, so we're probably like 6 feet back.
Were you demanded to stand that far away?
Believe me, it's quite the thing, because you know, with these things, it wasn't like a meet Shatner sort of a situation.
Oh, it was just like a file in and take a picture.
You bought the ticket, so like you file in, you hit your marks, picture. File in, hit your mark. They were aiming for 6 seconds between pictures while he was just sitting there on the bridge, just being Shatner, because that's all he needs to do.
That's a great picture, but I have to tell you, I think I prefer that one.
Oh, me too. Oh, for sure.
That's
for
pretty
sure,
rad,
me too.
man.
So anyway, so maybe we'll do a
Little Q&A?
a little Q&A. We'll do a live episode with the patrons at some point. Where I took a gazillion photographs and we can talk about the whole experience for those who have not had the chance to go up to Fort Ticonderoga, New York, to go see this whole thing. It was quite the event. Got to hear Shatner do some wild extemporaneous beatnik poetry about the universe.
That's why you sign up for it. This is what we're talking about.
It was a fun experience. So for anybody who's interested, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/K&M. We will let you know there when we're going to film it, and then you can
now, were you close enough
to
like, did he smell of space or like old man cologne?
I did not smell the Shat.
Okay.
As I suppose I could have. I guess I did not think to smell the Shat. But it was fun. So anyway,
cool. That's awesome.
Really, really impressive set that they built there. It's out there. I mean, luckily, because of where I live in Vermont, it's less than 2 hours from my parents' house in Vermont. And more importantly, it is directly on the way from my parents' house back to back home. So it ended up being very convenient for me to go to this very inconvenient place in upstate New York. So,
hey, you know what? Convenience. That's what that's why we call him Keith Convenience Varney. Keith Convenience.
I am firmly somebody who will do or not do something 95% based on convenience. So there we go. We'll talk about it on the other episode. But we have to lurch forward 2 series from the original series all the way past Next Gen, all the way to season 7 of Deep Space Nine, because we have to talk about what you thought of last week's episode, Chrysalis. And here are the patron comments from last week. We had a week off, so we had more time for people to come in. We had a whole bunch of new posters. I will announce them later. Very happy to see that. So Mike, it's been 2 weeks. Do you have any idea what the last week's episode was?
Yeah, that's when we had a maybe somewhat problematic relationship between Dr. Bashir and Dr. Bashir's patient, whose name was Serafina? Something like that?
You were right the first time.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm so impressed.
Thank you. And I'm
dazzled.
We were complimentary of some of the performances and the emotional maturity of said Serena, less so with the doctor's handling of the scenario. However, I believe that our viewers and patrons were a little more forgiving of the good doctor.
Well, I mean, it was mildly ick, but it was intentionally so. It was, so many times with these shows, you have these ick sequences, but in the time period of the show, it's like, oh, this is cool, this is normal. But the show itself knew it was ick, which I think redeems the whole thing. Joshua Cronin says, I don't mind this follow-up episode with these 4. It is sad to see Bashir get invested in Serena more than just a friend and nothing comes to fruit. Nonetheless, I love that she was helped and seems happy at the end of it all. I give it 80 self-sealing stem bolts. Brian from Video Game Drive-By says, hi guys, I love this episode, but it makes me uncomfortable. I've been Bashir before. Yeah, me too, buddy. I tried to turn something where I helped someone I cared about into a closer relationship faster than I should have, and absolutely torpedoed everything. Yeah, no, that is a story of my life. Although I'm not saving their life with some sort of medical genius, I'm usually helping them with their website. That's the sort of like a unfair relationship I have. I have the password to your website.
Would you say that you fall into relationships of convenience?
Not for them. Anyway, I feel for him, but also see some of the mistakes I made, and it opens old wounds. Yeah. Plus, the doctor-patient relationship feels uncomfortable. Faith's performance as Serena was fantastic. I fully believed her arc. She is also really funny on Wait, Don't Tell Me. Okay, so a couple of people mentioned the fact that she's a regular panelist on Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is the NPR sort of quiz show on Sunday mornings, which I've listened to many times. I never made the connection. It is so fun to know that she's a panelist on that. I had absolutely no idea, and now I'm going to listen to it totally differently. And also, she, I as part of my day job, listed an off-Broadway one-person show that she did about 3 or 4 years ago. Again, listed the show, did all the stuff, did not make the connection at all. So little did I know how many connections I had by being aware of her to Faith Sally that I have. Very cool. So Brian continues, I give this episode 78 stupid questions, and you guys always get top fart marks in my house.
I'm glad someone approved of that.
Yeah, I did not remember. I'd have no recollection, but it is not a surprise to me that we talked about farts. Oh, and to talk about the holosuites for a sec, I always assumed that in the event they needed larger groups, they'd just network the suites together, like the holo communicator the Defiant has. Brilliant idea. I don't think that's canon, but I think it is a good canon fix. Jason Moe says, okay, I did not look this up, and I left this in because I think I should have to wallow in my oldness. Jason says, I'm SMH at Mike for asking where the season 7 bangers are when we just had the baseball episode. Mike, what does SMH stand for?
Shaking my head?
Shaking my head. Okay.
Because I've seen SMDH before, shaking my damn head.
Okay. Well, I'm shaking my old head right now. But Jason says, like Keith, I too remember being emotionally scarred in middle school by the story this episode is loosely based on. In my case, we read the Flowers for Algernon novel, and I remember being quite moved by it and also really loving it along with that very bittersweet ending. When Chrysalis first aired, I was dreading that Serena was going to come to a similar end as the character in that book. I recall being very happily surprised that it didn't play out the same way in this episode. In fact, there's a Star Trek novel set many years later where Bashir and Serena reunite in an interesting way. Anyway, not the best Deep Space Nine episode, but I sure did have a crush on Serena. Understandably, 72 stem bolts. Hibernation Pod says, I'm glad you guys had to start over.
Ow.
We never would have got the Keef double tap. Along with that, you two said, I think that there is a certain amount of time that needs to go by to appropriately meet ethical standards. Depending on the field, or maybe it's the same all around, it is a minimal 5 years since the last moment of contact or case closed. It is a mature episode, makes one think. It also challenges us to imagine where we want all this to go in the future. How do we want to see these ethics develop that far ahead into the future? We are in essence still very young in all fields. Like Serena, society needs time regardless of how good or smart it can all be. If that makes sense, it does. 70 self-sealing stem bolts. Yeah, that is a really fascinating question. Because my first reaction was like, waiting the minimal 5 years. Ooh, 5 years seems like a long time. But then, like, what amount of time should it be? What is the right amount of time? So, like, you know, and there are lots of situations like this. You know, doctor-patient, student-teacher, 5 years seems long. But
Student
I don't
teacher's
know.
a weird one too. I got to tell you, I had a teacher in college.
Well, yes, it definitely depends on
Yeah,
where
make
you're
a
a student.
move, and it did not go in that direction. Mostly because I just wasn't into it. It had nothing to do with ethics.
Oh, it was you in college. It had nothing to do with ethics. I know.
So I don't know if I thought that was like out of hand, but we were basically the same age actually. So
Well, but again, is it like a tenured professor or the TA?
no, it was the professor.
I don't. I would say then that was inappropriate.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But how
Well, like-
long? All right. So, but after you had crashed out of said school,
Mhm.
how long would it have been appropriate to wait? Had you been interested? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And to spin this forward into the future, because the fantasy of the society where we've matured, what does that look like? What would be the ethical standards for that?
Yeah, you probably
I
have
don't
to
know.
transfer out of that class, right?
At the very least, if not out of the school.
At the school. Come on.
Well,
Schools are very expensive, Keith.
Well, believe me, I know. I don't know. I really didn't want to date any of my professors at college because they were old and angry and scary. But now I'm old and angry and scary. So who knows?
Well, this is so stupid. Man, the tangents we go on, but I guess that's the brand. So Jen's
the
been
show,
doing a
man.
rewatch of Gilmore Girls, which means I have been doing a rewatch of Gilmore Girls
Sure.
with and I just have to pip and pop in the very least. But I do remember when it was airing originally, I was more interested in Rory Gilmore, the younger of the Gilmores, clearly. But now I'm Team Lorelai for sure. But now I think, but actually, Rory actress is now the proper age.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like, and like we all, yeah, boy, God, the weird, gross ethics of that. Like the people you imprinted on, like who were your age at the time. Like I remember, but when I say like, oh my God, I had such a crush on the girl from Jurassic Park, and now I'm like, oh my God, it's a child, but like I was that same age.
There's a fun. There's this like thought experiment that there was like a time in your 20s. Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
There's a time in your 20s when you're like, man, if I go back in high school, I'd do this, this, and this. I'd like. But now that thought experiment, you're like, nope, we're bored. It's gonna be pervy. Because remember, all those people in high school that you'd be like hitting on are in high school, and you're like, you now.
Well, sure. Like you have to imagine that you're going back to like middle-aged high school, where all of your old high school people are now there in middle age.
Yeah, like it's Freaky Friday, right? If you're in the biological body of a youngin, but you got your 40 brain.
Yeah, no.
What's the ethics of that?
No, that's a hard no. Because the difference is not like your body; it's your brain.
Okay, so then riddle me this. Let's bring it back. Let's circle it back.
Okay.
What if you're a
all right.
trill? Those guys are just hundreds of years old, and now your person is put into a 18-year-old, let's say, or however the young cadets are.
That is a very good
now
question.
ethics are. Now we're talking.
Yeah. And honestly, that would be a good Star Trek episode. But with the Trill, you are not just the symbiote who is
Right.
300. You are also the age of the host.
Like, can you imagine? Can you
Which
imagine?
I guess is the Freaky Friday thing.
Right. Can you imagine?
But you're sharing a consciousness.
You're
not
a
just
trill.
body.
Okay, you're a trill host, right? Who is now. Okay, let's say you're Esri, okay, and you go on before you came to Deep Space Nine, you went on a mission to Earth for whatever reason.
Okay.
And you come across a young Keith Varney, or not even a young Keith Varney. Let's just say normal you Keith.
Okay.
Well, no, that's weird because whatever. Add it
If
to the mix.
Esri wanted to kiss, I would be like, yes,
Yeah, but
please.
think about it. You've got your experience, right? Which is not none, but you're
Close enough.
your part. I didn't mean that to be this dig. It was, but it's pretty funny.
I mean, it certainly was in high school.
Yeah, okay. But then, okay, let's say you're Keith Varney from high school, right?
Okay.
Whatever. You're a human, and your partner.
I've done most human things.
And you guys are both young-ish, and you're trying to like wine and dine, but your partner's been double donged by a Klingon.
Wait. that come from?
Well, because she's been married to Worf.
But what does this have to do with ethics? It's just like...
I'm just saying, like, that sucks for you. That you have to try to, like, meet those expectations.
That's true of anybody who's ever dated anybody.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, it'd be different if you're, okay, I've had 10 partners, 15 partners, 20 partners. You meet a 600-year-old Trill, that number's big.
I see.
Sorry, it really has less to do with the double dong and just what that represents.
Sorry, you lost me at the double dong, and I'm thinking, like, is this about penis envy? What's happening here?
No, but it's just like, I don't know. When you're inexperienced, that's a lot to live up to.
Well, but that's, rarely do you date somebody who has had the same experience level as you.
You're right.
Just as a like you're more or less or whatever. You're all, everyone's on a continuum. I think that you have to go back to the relationship for that. Like,
yeah. Let me ask you a more important question. Should any of this be in the episode? Any of it?
No, I think it's interesting.
Okay.
I think it's interesting, and. Who doesn't love a double dong conversation? Hello, Charlie.
Yeah, I know. The cat's
Charlie's getting out of here. He's going to bed.
We've kind of forgotten how to do what we do. It's been a while.
Yeah, well, take a week off and we're lost. Mysterious Anne, who dearly wishes we had cut that sequence, says, I always forget how this one ends, and I'm always delighted. The episode feels so much like Awakenings, and it surprises and delights me when she doesn't go back into the coma, and then having her assert herself and turn Julian down is an additional surprise and delight. I think the episode's main inspiration is My Fair Lady. And the episode's
Jen agreed with
ending,
this, by the way.
Interesting. I obviously know My Fair Lady. And I think it's right, but it's interesting. The episode ending feels like a fix for the My Fair Lady ending, where she brings him his slippers groan. Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's bad.
Gross. Knowing the solfege scene was not just there to highlight the great voices of the actors, that was my previous theory for why it was so prominent and long, I think Renee Echevarria must have been really channeling the rain in Spain in that scene. Interesting. When Serena starts singing, I always want to say, by George, I think she's got it. I once saw an outdoor production of that when they got to the rain in the Spain, it started pouring.
Oh, that's cool.
It was interesting.
Last time I saw
the show.
I had been on like 2 dates with CEO Jen, and she was doing a production of that. And I had to go see her, and it was like that big test, good. You know what I mean? Like, what if they're bad?
Yeah, what if she sucks? Yeah.
Luckily, it turns out it was not the case.
It was not the case with Jen, and apparently she didn't care with you.
I did. I'm not going to tell that story.
There?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. You missed the dig.
No, I heard the dig.
Okay, all right.
This just wasn't great.
Hey.
It was no double
dong. How was it? Would you do double dong? Mike is actually a phenomenal performer. Anyway.
I try.
I think what saves this episode is that it's pretty clear throughout that Julian is in the wrong. The writers aren't trying to make his abuse of power look romantic or suggest that what he's doing is okay. Hard agree. There is some chemistry and ambiguity in the beginning about whether or not she has romantic feelings for him, but that ultimately brings the point home harder. Just because a woman smiles at you and falls asleep on your shoulder doesn't mean she wants to go with you to Ryza. Yes. 100% yes. She also shouldn't have to kiss you just because she's grateful and feels like she owes you something. Women face situations like this frequently, and I agree with Mike that it would have been more interesting to get more of Serena's point of view and explore what women deal with when we don't want to get romantic relationships with someone but also feel an internal and external pressure to be a nice girl. Such a good point. And I think better stated than we were trying to state all of those same things. But like, and I've had mild experiences when I've been in that situation, and it's horrible. And I have to deal with it once or twice in my life, not once or twice a week, like many women do. And continues, I find it refreshing that there's so much in this episode that is clearly taking a stand against abuse of power in relationships. It allows it to be cringe without being permanently damaging to Julian's character or our trust in the show as viewers. The show's point of view here is so important. and it is the redemption of the episode. There's no way Walter will ever sit through this one too cringe, but I give it 78 stem bolts for rising above some of the usual tropes.
Unfortunately, I fear that Walter shouldn't be a part of this episode either.
Walter's, I don't know.
Skip just skip. Well, actually, we've already. But the warning is way too late. This spoiler warning is well after the double donged.
We are 100 and something episodes into this. A warning has been made through experience. Like, you know, no, I'm not even gonna go there. YouTube viewer says this is a bittersweet episode. First, that's a stupid question is tied for it's a fake for my favorite one-liners in all of Deep Space Nine. Agreed. I've recently watched several videos of deaf people hearing for the first time, then rewatched Serena's transformation scene. The actress playing Serena, it was great. Dr. Bashir was pushing into some ethically dubious territory, courting his patient and courting someone who was technically an adult, but emotionally a child. He shouldn't have romantically pursued her. He certainly pushed things way too fast. That actually is a point that we missed.
We kind of missed, yeah.
And but I think it's a really good point, and I think it is a separate and specific part of this. But it does tie a little bit to our trail ethics with that. So because it's not just like a power dynamic, it's an intellectual maturity dynamic, which is probably even grosser. But really good point. YouTube continues. On the other hand, I can't imagine Dr. Bashir managing to successfully pair bond with someone who is not at his intellectual level. So that's sort of the other hand of it, is that she, from a life experience maturity level, is way behind him. But intellectually, intelligence-wise, is one of the very few people who can match him. So it is complex and interesting. A minor thing, I don't get why they were stuck in the cargo hold. Clearly the main reason for it was the ease of cinematography, but it seemed ridiculous and perhaps even problematic to shut the neurodivergent group into a cargo hold.
I think you mentioned that, Keith.
I did, yeah. But very good point. But mostly, it just seems like lazy writing for plot convenience. A good episode with flaws. 75 stem bolts. Edit. It's a little weird when you have 5 characters in desperate need of counseling, and Ezri just makes one joking quip to one of them. That's bad writing. On the other hand, maybe sidelining Ezri is good for the writing because this plot line isn't about her. I am conflicted.
I wonder if the production reasoning for we're stuck in the cargo bay is save money, right? We're going to bring in the guest stars into one location and shoot for one day, and that way we contrive a reason to have them all in one set, so we don't have to change set. Like we just kind of have them on one setup and just go.
You could have them sharing a quarters.
Yep.
I mean, the quarters set's just sitting there. I don't know. JD says, so when I was in film school, I started a running joke with my friends that every great film has a musical number in the second act. Then, weirdly enough, multiple films came out around that time that all had some kind of musical bit in the second act. That's interesting. Mike, can you think of movies that have just like a single musical number in it? Like, I know like the Deadpools do.
Well, depends on how you define that, but I always think back, I instantly go to Shawshank, where one of the most amazing scenes is when Andy escapes and locks himself into the office and plays the opera, and they play the full opera number across the
That's
prison.
true.
I mean, if you count that as a music
using
sequence.
music as a plot point, but I don't know if that would necessarily count as a musical number.
Well, we hear the number in its entirety, is why.
No, for sure, but
I mean?
Nobody's performing it.
Yeah,
Like,
but
there's some great
we do listen to them. We're watching them listen to a full number,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know. Kids out there, give me examples. I'm curious. I realize that while both of you, looking at both of you on the screen, if I let my eyes relax, y'all become like one of those 3D stereo vision pictures. It's a bizarre monster mashup of you both. I'm sorry. I'm insulted. Everything about that is bad. And yet here I am. I designed this thing which literally looks like one of those viewer screens.
Yeah.
You put on your face. That's my fault. It's my fault. Our big cliffhanger of the week is, will Keith get a secret pick with Shatner? You damn right I will. It wasn't even secret.
I mean, he's far enough away that you could interpret it as you snuck up on him.
It was intentional. That picture was by consent. I mean, I think Shatner probably made 40 grand sitting in that chair for an hour, but it was by consent.
A man's been to space.
Yeah. And then Keith said, "Did we?" In such a high-pitched the dog started barking. Awakenings is a fantastic film. I am actually with Mike. Chrysalis has more in common with Awakenings than Flowers. Flowers is great on its own, but it has very little similarities to this. So on the musical number, you have to remember that almost none of musical people, aka musicians and theater kids, only know music in the Sound of Music type nomenclature. So to use with the same shorthand is actually a good for 50% of your audience that has no other way to connect with what is happening.
I like this.
Yeah, take. Totally. I mean, you're right. You're going for a wider audience. I just think it's dorky, but I think that's just me. I think I'm rare for that. And that's all Sound of Music's fault, is the only reason most people know Solfege anyway. I know everyone talks about this episode in regards to it being a sequel to when the quartet first visited, but I really see this as a third in a trilogy. The first being when Dr. Zimmerman came and we learned about Jules being enhanced. And now this is part 3 where it comes full circle for him, and he is now helping someone else come out of hiding from living a full life. What we are actually seeing is Bashir coming out of his chrysalis. 88 self-stealing stem bolts from me. Great point. Like it. Headcanon.
You know, I always have to say, there are a lot of things about Sound of Music that I don't enjoy. But one thing, and maybe it's not right of me, but I find it bizarre that it popularized Edelweiss, which I find to be a troublesome song in many ways.
Of course it is, but it's taken out of what people have done is taken out of context. In context, it is not problematic. It's only that you take it out of context that it becomes problematic. Like many things.
Yeah, like I'll put a boot in their ass, the USA. I mean, in context, it's just a proud to be an American song, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, God, so many. And I mean, it's like, or the example I always think about is Springsteen's Born in the USA, right? Which got co-opted to be like this American that Reagan used it. And he's like, guys, listen to the lyrics. It's not like, it is not like, it is ironic, you dumbass. But that's not how people think. Alan T. Girton says, "Hey guys, love the show, as if you couldn't figure it out. Some episodes I like to watch on the YouTube channel, but for others I listen to the podcast versions, such as when I'm mowing or driving. Regarding this specific episode, did the podcast version not drop? P.S. 75 do-re-mis. Yeah, Alan, I'll tell you what. I went on vacation, forgot to press go on dropping the episode on the podcast version, and guess what? Don't have the password on my laptop."
And let me talk about not safe for work. I guarantee you, whatever that password is, we can't say it on the podcast.
Yeah, it's probably, well, I'll tell you exactly why. It's because for a while
there was an arms race.
We were sharing the password, and the password became something more and more offensive about our. Depending
on who had to reset it because we forgot, that person would set one that was
that was more and more
upsetting.
Offensive.
Yeah.
To about a certain football players.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Alan, it is up now. I will endeavor to not do that again. But here's the problem. I probably could have gotten the password because I have a password manager. I didn't remember what email account it was tied to.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So like, if my computer dies, the podcast is dead. Anyway, so lots of good comments out there, and I would like to just specifically welcome our new commenters who are not patrons, but you can join at patreon.com/K&M, and then I'll read your comment. But thank you for joining in, Mr. Oimster, the Cinema House, the Wick 2K Bug, Stunt Monkey 00, and Crashing Thunder. Really appreciated all of your comments. Read them all. Really insightful stuff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll take a quick second along those lines. For those of you who...
I'm going to plug in my Fitbit while you do this.
All right. For those of you who have written us direct messages on Patreon, and JD, some others, and we don't always get back right away. We were gone for a week, so I'm doing a lot of catch-up, so it's not for lack of love. We're just a little behind.
Oh, yeah. Also, same reason I don't have the Patreon login on my laptop either, so I haven't looked at it in 2 weeks. I'm going to get on it. So sorry in advance when I only go, like... All right, let me tell you something else. Be perfectly honest. When I have a lot going on in my life, I get shy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I get overwhelmed. And so I don't log on and stuff like that.
You know what? We're kind of like your uncles who like you really love. They're really fun. You have a lot of, but like they always forget your birthday. And then like 3 months later, they give you like a $5 gift certificate to Friendlies. And that's kind of us.
So
That's
we're like
also me as an uncle.
We're like the crappy uncles. Like I try to be the good uncle, where I get the toy, not necessarily more expensive, but more irresponsible that like the responsible adults in your life wouldn't get you. I try to be that uncle.
I have 15 nieces and nephews.
Oh my god!
And so I'm just perpetually the shitty uncle because I can, like my sister-in-law's kid. She has 5 kids. Of one of them, I've only met twice. And Christmas, we send them like, we bought you some tickets to the Ferris wheel in Myrtle Beach. It's like, we're so lame, but it's just expensive to do presents.
Well, that's the difference between you and me. You have 15, I have 1.
You can spoil.
So that makes it easier. So anyway, what do you say we talk about this week's episode? Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. Certainly I'm excited to talk about it. It's a really interesting episode, and it aired on November 2nd, 1998, coming up on the Thanksgiving time.
Coming up on my 18th birthday.
Oh, snap. Look out, world.
I wonder...
Mike's going to be an adult.
Oh, I would have just missed that election. Was that an election year?
Oh, right.
98?
It was a midterm year. It was the first election that I voted in because I'm slightly older than you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I could have changed everything, Keith.
You are going to change everything. You know, honestly, there's only like one instance of things getting better since then, so maybe you ruined it.
That might have been the last instance of things getting better. Anyway, what am I singing?
The top song, would you believe, still the first night. But it wasn't the first night. We'd had many nights at this point.
So many nights, but the first one I remember post being 18. To be frank with you, I don't remember mostly anything about that time. There you go.
Wow. Insightful.
I'm trying to remember my 18th birthday. That should be like an important one, right? Got nothing.
I mean,
got
to be
literally nothing
honest,
for you.
Neither do I. Although honestly, okay, so
I got nothing.
This would have been 1998, a few months before.
So I'm a junior in high school.
I was graduating high school. So I would have. All right, so then I believe I celebrated my birthday in rehearsals for the community theater production of The Secret Garden I did in the summer of 1998. I was an newly 18-year-old Archie. It was such an amazing experience. I'm sure the show was terrible, but because you had Archie, he was 18, but many people in that production went on to fame and fortune.
God bless them.
Not me, but other people from that production lived both my dream and my nightmare. So just think about that. All right, the top movie. You ready for this? John Carpenter's Vampires.
I don't remember that one.
I saw that one in the theater and not since, but you know what? I'm going to watch it again because I remember like this was terrible, but it was like super gory and that was interesting. So just something to think about. Mike, what was on TV tonight? Probably not that gory in the 90s.
Let's go ahead and skip it because there's other stuff to do. We've been talking forever.
We have been talking forever. Oh, we've been off for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's true.
What happens? What was Voyager doing in the flesh? but I'm not really going to give spoilers. I'm not going to give a lot of episode descriptions about Voyager
Because we're getting close.
anymore. A, because we're getting close to doing it, and B, because like Deep Space Nine, Voyager gets much more serialized as we move forward. So now that we're deep into season 5 of Voyager, can't really give much of anything without giving a spoiler. So there we are.
Wait, Keith.
Yes.
Holy crap.
What?
That reminds me, we're like a week away from Strange New Worlds.
Yes, we are.
Oy vey. July
Oy
17th.
vey, indeed.
July 17th.
2 weeks, yeah.
So we're going to get episodes 1 and 2 on the 17th. They're dropping the first
God.
2. So we have to think about what we want to do.
No, why?
We got to think about it.
All right.
Because the whole point is we want to go week, that we want to be up. We want to try it.
The whole point is you want to do that, yes.
Yes, I do. I just feel like it's something I want to try to do, but
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, then it means I got to...
we could do like a Monday, Wednesday thing or something like that.
Oh, all right, I got to do graphics for season 3.
I know what also stinks is I'm going away for a week for work at the end of July. We're going to figure it out.
We got problems. We got problems. We have so many problems.
We got trouble right here.
I'll tell you what, Sean texted me a while back, like, oh, have you heard of this show? And I'm like, yeah, I do a show about this show. And I sent him a link, and I was like, you know what? That show looks great. Because it's
That's
all
what he
the
said,
next-gen
or you said that?
I said that.
Oh,
He
yeah.
definitely didn't say that. He didn't watch it.
Yes, it does.
That's
And
amazing.
it's HDR, baby. So like,
Did you HDR us?
no. I mean, the show itself is in HDR. So
no,
when
I
I
meant
watch
our
it
little
back,
production.
yeah. But
Because I steal, in order to create the graphics, I steal stuff from the show and adapt them. That's why it looks good.
anyway,
right.
get psyched for it, folks. Your shitty
Get
uncles are
psyched.
coming through.
Woo! Enjoy your gift card to... Enjoy your 20% off coupon for ice cream at like a roadside attraction.
I got
Okay.
for some holiday I got a gift card to I got 2 gift cards to Amazon or Dunkin' or Starbucks or something like that,
Sure.
right?
Always welcome.
Yes. And I used one of them and then I couldn't remember which one I used and I gifted the other one.
Oh, no.
Well, you can see where this is going.
Yep, I know exactly
So I
where
gave
that's
somebody during the holiday, one of my nieces or nephews, like a Starbucks gift card that said $25 and had $6.50 on it.
But okay, so that's amazing and horrible, and I ache for your dignity already. But I want to dig a little further. How did you find out? Did she come back and say,
No, because I used the
Uncle
other
Mike?
gift card and it had $25 on it or whatever.
So she never told you.
No, of course not. Now, I will say this. I think it was an additional, like an addendum to the gift that... Anyway. I also promised them I would take them to New York this summer, and I have to do that, so...
Well, now you really do.
Yeah.
Now you really do. Yeah, you want to get them a... obviously, they're probably in Philly, so they're going to have to take the train in. So you're going to buy them a train ticket that only takes
Well,
them to
initially
Trenton?
we were going to... Because they're big into, like... We're going to get them shows and all these things, but really they just want to hang out with their friends. I'm going to pay for the train tickets, I'll pay for lunch.
To Trenton.
The whole thing. I'll drive to Trenton. From Trenton to... Anyway... But we're not going to see a show or do anything like that. I'm gonna ChatGPT all the free, fun summer stuff to do in the summer. I'm just going to plot all free stuff. I'll buy them a daily Metro card, and we're just going to go and do free stuff in New York.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
Maybe.
Where the heck were we?
I don't know.
The director of Treachery, Faith, and the Great River is Stephen L. Posey, doing his first episode, but not last, of Deep Space Nine. It has a story by Philip T. Kim, who is a production assistant who also provided the story to Honor Among Thieves, and it is written by David Weddle and Bradley Thompson. Which means, we should get to the serious work of... Now Keith, waste your time
With what?
with trivial trivia. Okay, so trivial trivia. The idea of a Starfleet officer who collects photos of himself sitting behind desks of famous captains who want Sisko's desk in this episode was Ira Stephen Bear's joke about how obsessed Trekkies can become. Cue picture of me sitting on the fake bridge. This explains the reference to Captain Picard, one of the franchise's most popular characters.
But don't get me wrong. The thought of having the desks of all the different captains is pretty awesome.
Or just a picture with it, yeah. I mean...
Like a 3D scan that you could, pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the problem is they're desks for TV and not necessarily to fit in my basement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I have JD's Cisco desk sitting right behind me right there, so I already have one. I could, maybe I should use a foreshortening thing and take a picture of myself behind the desk of JD's desk. I could probably make that work. All right, let me think on that. Yes, so on the runabout, you can see Weyoun trying to eat pepperoni pizza with
a chopstick, yeah.
Hilarious. Loved it. Great little bit. It is possible that Gul Rasol is the contact whom Odo speaks about in Improbable Cause. He mentioned that Rasol was one of his most reliable contacts, and in Improbable Cause, he obviously places great faith in this informant, so there's the possibility that they are one in the same. The fact that this episode and that episode, he goes to meet in an identical-looking cave, would also seem to confirm that, or confirm that they reuse that cave set really frequently. All right, so our guest stars this week are Jeffrey Combs, doing incredible work as both Weyoun 6 and Weyoun 7. Jeffrey Combs, the legend. What are you gonna do? Casey Biggs as Damar, J.G. Hertzler as Martok, Aaron Eisenberg as Nog, Max Grodenchik as Rom, and, surprise, Salome Jens as the female changeling. There are some people in our life
I would never
who
change.
are always a welcome guest star, surprise or not. And you know what? They can star as many versions of themselves as they want, because they're paying for all this, Mike.
That's the patrons, Keith, and I'd like to say their names quickly. Brian Kimber Biersick, Mark Spar, Jamie Lubin, Jason Moe, Deborah, Peter Bank, thanks for being the top pips of the pip. Joshua Cronin, DC, Anton Thies, Mike. Andrew Hayes, Alan and the Mysterious, Worf's Big Ol' Boot Shivs, Charles Babbage, John Kelly, Keith Blank, Casey Alexander, Harry Pothead, Carl Fisher, Alan Gurton, Deborah Scott, Tren, Otis Bucket, Lost Emu, Brian from Video Game Drive-By, Scotty B, Nikolay Ivanovich Lobotevsky, YouTube viewer Merritt Neath, Byron Woosley, Hibernation Pod, Miri Holcomb, Aroha, AI Sausage, Yum Yum, Rogue Knight, Ben B, JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, Frank Rinch, Pat, Joshua Cronin, Kevin Miles, The Chancellor, Chancellor Jen, Fedora the Explorer, Engineer Maynard, Jerome A. Gibson, April H., James Hubbard, Ryan Caputo, Kevin Miles, Walt Everidge, that's not right, Lutz Grimmer, Bullion for Soup, Chanel, Laura Morrison. Hey, did you know there's a Hall of Fame? And these folks are on it. Casey Clark, Brian, Joshua Moe, Joshua Cronin. They had an unholy matrimony. Jason Moe, Joshua Cronin, The Mysterious Ann, Andrew Hayes, Worf's Big Ol' Boot Chips, Colin Diggin, Quarks Bar, Peter Bank, CRM Productions, Jennifer Massanova, thanks, Cloud Lover 69, thank you, Jorge Novoa, Charles Babbage, Kevin Frank, Brian Kimball Beersock, JD, CRM Productions, Ryan Chesley, and Yanba. There's a page too with Anton Thies, Merritt Neath, and Harry Pothead. You can join the team at patreon.com/KNM, and if for any reason you've been a loyal patron and you are having struggles in this new economy, in this new world, we can help you out to stay on the team. Or if you really would desperately like to see the watch-alongs or any of our other good stuff, and you just can't make it happen, that $1 is too high a barrier of entry, let us know. We can hook you up.
Yes, and we will try to spare you the unholy matrimony of the brain cells that just crashed into each other in Mike's head. While reading those names, that's it's. I usually use this moment as a chance to run upstairs to the fridge and get myself another drink. But even when I come back, there's just things happening out of Mike's mouth that I really enjoy.
There's got to be a better way, but
no. I think it's the way we've chosen. What do you say we choose to go into the screening room?
Look
at your dead eyes in that video.
I didn't think that one particular day was going to be the day.
It's like Dead eyes, doll's eyes.
It must have been a crappy episode.
It's amazing.
Tell you what's not crappy. A little goo hand massage.
Ooh.
Let me tell you,
So,
during this scene, Keith, Odo wasn't the only one with goo hands. You knew it was coming. I'm sorry, what's worse, that or the double dong?
Well, you need to use both hands. All right.
Hey.
So in our teaser, Odo and Kira are, as you said, gooing. Kira might be onto something, dating a changeling. Like, it's good to have good hands, but Odo, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But Odo gets a message from a Cardassian contact who he thought was dead. Odo knows that he has to find out, so he heads off alone to find out what's going on. Meanwhile, Quark is complaining to O'Brien that the promenade is closed for maintenance. He and Nog have been working frantically, and they are completely overloaded with engineering tasks. And Sisko comes up and to complain about the gravity net needing to be fixed on the Defiant. And he doesn't, but O'Brien does not have the part that he needs. So did you know that's how they did gravity on the ships?
No, but it makes sense.
Yeah, there's a net in the floorboard that creates gravity that can be calibrated.
Yeah, they deal with that idea a little bit. Sorry, this is way out in the left field. This is a K&M Geekly, but I went and saw the new Pixar joint, Elio. It is like a love letter to sci-fi fans. It's really great, worth it. They explore gravity in some fun stuff in some fun ways. So that's a high recommend for me this summer.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, so Sisko tells him he has only 3 days to fix the Defiant. And then he heads off to Bajor, but he wants what's the thing that needs to be fixed before he gets back. Oh, the gravity plating. Luckily, Nog has a plan. Starting with buttering up the quartermaster who is holding up the part. He needs to get moved to the top of the list, and he's going to do it by forming a relationship with this guy. And Nog is going to sort it somehow. And O'Brien is like, whatever. All right, just don't do anything I wouldn't do. And Nog, and I love the stage direction here, it says, serious. Chief, I can't operate under those kind of restrictions. At least promise me you won't do anything to get us court-martialed. I'll try. Hilarious. And, again, this was I forget what episode it was, but we were wishing that we'd found a way to, with the suicide mission to get Jadzia into Tovacor, missed opportunity to get Quark a chance to pull something like this. But like the advantages of having a Ferengi in Starfleet is they can pull stuff like this. And I really like being able to play with it. So meanwhile, Odo arrives at his typical mysterious rendezvous cave. But instead of his Cardassian contact, he finds Weyoun.
Weyoun is like Garrick in that regardless of how early we are in the episode, once they pop up and you get the knowledge that that's what the episode's going to be around, it's joy.
Oh, like Weyoun being in an episode like raises it a letter grade, just like Garrick.
And it's like you get Weyoun playing a complete opposite of Weyoun, right? So you get a whole new character for him to create. So awesome.
Well, for sure. And it is these guest stars that are such an important part of Deep Space Nine, more than any other Star Trek series. And I can't really think of many bad episodes that has either Weyoun, Garrick, or Martok. There just aren't bad episodes that have one of them. And it is always like when they show up in the thumbnail, I'm like, okay, we got a good one this week. So super fun. So Weyoun says, I'm afraid the Cardassian Central Command. Oh, he asks about his informant, and this Cardassian Central Command had put him to death almost a year ago. I regret having to deceive you, but it was the only way I could think of to get you here. Well, I'm here. What do you want? To serve you. I no longer consider myself a member of the Dominion. You're defecting? Do with me as you wish. I place my fate entirely within your hands. And that is a teaser.
Mm-hmm.
So in Act 1, Odo was naturally pretty curious why. And Weyoun said, let's just say I left Cardassia because my life was in danger. From whom? Everyone. Aren't you being a little paranoid? Of course I'm paranoid. Everyone's trying to kill me. Why? Because this war with the Federation was supposed to have been won months ago. Things didn't go as they turned out. It don't always turn out as planned. Quite true. But when things go wrong, someone has to take the blame, and this time it's me. So Weyoun then offers war-winning caliber information in exchange for his life, and he proves his willingness by pointing out where some shipyard is. So they beam out and arrive on the runabout. So Weyoun defecting like crazy. It's like Hunt for Red October a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And it felt abrupt, but we get an explanation for that. But, we did just see a bunch of stuff happen last season, this season, where the war tide is up in the air. And it's definitely going to be prolonged. So his story makes sense. And I felt satisfied with trusting Odo to know how to test his intelligence. Right.
To test his intelligence and to be skeptical of his motives, with also allowing it to play out, because obviously, as it turns out, this is incredibly important.
And they do a great job, and we'll get to this beat in a minute, but they do a great job subverting our expectation, because my expectation, I'm sure many people initially, is changeling, right? He's clearly a changeling. We should test to make sure he's not a changeling.
About that. Oh,
right?
That's a great idea.
That would be the easiest way to supplant, get him onto the ship. Although I guess they've proven they can just beam aboard. So
also the one person you wouldn't want testing whether you're a changeling is a changeling.
Right.
But yeah, it's an interesting idea. Lots of infiltration ideas, but certainly like Weyoun defecting as an intelligence asset is enormous.
And then the next scene here, I guess 2 scenes from now, they make me think I'm right before they do the whole clone thing, which is awesome, but we'll get there.
So awesome. So back on Deep Space Nine, Nog has already started his plan. He's made friends with a quartermaster pretending to be O'Brien.
Time out.
But I
want that. That wall art thing is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be so cool, like in your bathroom or something.
Well, but I believe it has depth. So they probably built it out into that'd be cool. like a cabinet behind a mirror.
There's also, hopefully I get a screenshot, but there's also a light fixture that I really would love someone to 3D print, because it's cool.
Well,
we'll get to it.
You know what's interesting though, especially on the original series set tour, they built everything perfectly, but they point out all of these weird light fixtures and doodads or gizmos are just stuff that was regularly available. They just turned it upside down. Huh. So there's a non-zero chance you can just find that light fixture.
I might do that.
Yeah, well, there you are. Point it out when you see it, because somebody will know what it is. So back on Deep Space now, so Naga's pretending to be O'Brien, talking to the quartermaster, but the quartermaster needs a favor for someone else. So Nog says, I need your authorization code. What for? The shipping orders. Why don't you just bring them to me and I'll authorize them? I just thought it would save time. When did you say the captain was back? Stop looking so worried, Chief. I've got it all under control. So he gives a Ferengi his password, who never give a Ferengi your password.
Yeah, that almost rises to the level of wormhole, because but he's busy, he's in Starfleet, and it's Nog.
It's Nog. It's Nog, and it turns out to be the right thing to do. The only wormhole I have, and this has to do with just being the 90s, is that it would just be a password. It's like a it's like the same thing. The Star Trek, like you can blow up the ship on a 4-number passcode.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But they weren't really thinking biometrics. They didn't have Face ID at that point. But maybe they should have. So back on the runabout, Weyoun is creeping Odo out with his worshipping him as a god. Which is an important piece of this, is just like Odo's continued uncomfortability with Weyoun thinking of him as a god, which has some parallels to Cisco's relationship with being the emissary. But they get interrupted with a phone call from Weyoun. Uh-oh. So in Act 2, Odo says, I'm well aware that all Vortas are clones, but I'm not sure the universe is ready for 2 Weyouns. And our Weyoun says, couldn't agree more. So which of you is the Weyoun I've had the misfortune of dealing with for the past few years? Actually, neither of us. That was Weyoun 5. Our illustrious predecessor was killed a month ago. And Weyoun 5 was killed in a suspicious transporter accident, and the implication is strong that it was Damar who did it. And they'll talk more about this in the future, but like, what a weird situation. All right, so like, either of us were clones, and we're just like annoying the bejesus out of each other, and you could like kill the one and still get it replaced and just move on with your day. That's like a Black Mirror concept.
Yeah, I guess my question... It's not really, but I just want to test the button out. Is at what point, right, do the memories and intel transfer over?
Well, they talk about it. They mention like the onboarding of the new Weyoun.
Right, like up to what point? So like is it up to the point of death, or like when do they upload info? Like would he know who killed him?
Apparently not.
Yeah.
I would imagine, and this is pure speculation, this is just me trying to fix it for my brain, that like he has to like plug in at the end of every day.
That's what I was thinking too. And
so like, but so you don't necessarily get what happened on the day of because they hadn't, uploaded to the cloud.
Yeah. I do like the sort of elevation of the multiplicity principle, like that Michael Keaton movie, where of course the clones are great, but then the more copies you make,
yep,
they deteriorate like a VHS. Although in the future you'd think we'd have less of that problem, but I like here that it's not a comical. You usually see that sci-fi trope played out with comedy. Here it's not.
Right, here's the dumb one.
Yeah, this is his sense of ethics and morality shifted, but not his loyalty. Very cool concept. Very interesting take, I think.
Oh, fascinating. And I have more thoughts on that later when we get into it. So the Weyouns bicker, of course, as they are prone to do, and Damar tells Weyoun 7 to order Weyoun 6 to trigger his suicide implant. And Damar says, I told you it was a waste of time trying to reason with him, after he says no. Says, you're a dead man whether or not you activate the implant or not. The ship will never make it back to Deep Space Nine. Which is what you would expect him to say. But Weyoun 7 is in a pickle. He can't kill Weyoun 6 without risking Odo. But Damar is perfectly happy to do it. And they end the transmission, and Weyoun 6 explains what happened. Says it was simple, really. From the moment I was activated with the cloning. From the moment I was activated, I felt the war was wrong. Don't misunderstand me. I still worship the founders, but I believe their obsession with conquering the Alpha Quadrant was misguided. It's time they learned to live in peace with the solids. And no, it's not my place to question the founders. Maybe Weyoun 7 is right. I am defective. So in the cloning goo, they gave him too much morality. But of course, like, why wouldn't it go wrong in that way?
It's funny that the founders, so there are two sort of classes beneath them. They found one where they could manipulate via sort of years of social. You had to make them think they were gods initially, so that then when they cloned them, that was in there, right?
Possibly,
sort of like the old-fashioned way of
right.
slavery by religion, if you will.
They were manipulating an existing thing.
Yes. And then they were like, heck, that's too much trouble. Let's just genetically engineer our own species.
Start completely from scratch.
And then addict them to a drug to keep us tied.
Yeah, well, and it's like version 1, version 2, and I think they made them less intelligent in some ways. Though that's not really borne out that way as a better means of control, because the problem with the Vorta is that they're very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So back on Cardassia, Damar and Weyoun commiserate. Damar is still drinking a lot of Kanar, Chekhov's Kanar. And Weyoun 7 obliquely accuses Damar of killing Weyoun 5. And but he asked the obvious question: what happens if Odo refuses to hand over his prisoner?
How many Vorta are there? Right? Like, how many beings are being cloned?
How many different flavors? Because like there's only one of each flavor. They just replace them.
Yeah, we've seen the Rockstar, right? We've seen Iggy Pop.
We've seen Iggy Pop. We saw the first one, the first one we meet. We see the lady on the planet who tries to seduce Cisco. We have the super annoying guy that we weekend at Bernie's.
Right. Yeah, we just left him bouncing in the wall. Yep.
What a great episode. Magnificent Ferengi. And then we have like another like pompous one. So what is that? 5 or 6? So like I don't think there's more than like 10.
Because that'd be very complicated and a lot of it'd take a lot of storage space to upload all that. That's
right. The big cloud. But I don't know. I'm sure it is canon somewhere. Somebody knows. Somebody put it in the comments and let us know how many. But it is my impression that they have like 10 to 15 different flavors. Anyway, so of course, the dilemma here is we can't just blow up the runabout because of Odo. And Weyoun is like, we can't kill a founder. I forbid it. And Damar says, unless we stop them, Odo is going to take your predecessor back. Don't look it up, Mike. It's spoilers.
You think? Just how many Vorta there are?
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
Unless we stop them, Odo... I know your brain. I know exactly what's happening over there.
I like to know things right away.
I know. Unless we stop them, Odo is going to take your predecessor back to the Federation, where he will undoubtedly tell them all he knows, all you know, about our strategic operations. You realize what that means, don't you? I don't believe the Jem'Hadar would fire on Odo even if we ordered them to. Damar says they don't need to know he's on board. You can simply order them to destroy the runabout. And it is very interesting that Weyoun 7 agrees to this plan for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, he worships the founders, but also two things. One, we know that he knows what the big reveal of this episode is, right? So it's far more important than any like battle plans or troop movements, that kind of stuff. So he knows that he knows what Damar doesn't know, right? That the intelligence he's holding on to is incredibly important. But also, I wonder if he got all the treachery that Weyoun 6 is missing. So like he seems like extra vicious.
Yes. I look at it, so I have two other thoughts on that. So potentials I want to talk through. One would be he probably also fears the founders more than he worships them, meaning if they find out that this Weyoun escaped with Odo, he's in some deep S.
Right.
Or also, he may also strategically think that the only person who can help with the big reveal is Odo. And maybe he wants him to have that info. Because maybe Odo will help. If you believe they're gods, then the gods would obviously help the gods.
Yeah, boy, that is some 4-dimensional chess right there.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out. But that's
But of course the founders would have told him Odo is the enemy at this point. Oh no, they don't want him hurt, right?
No, they don't. Yeah, I mean look, complex and difficult to understand motivations are inherent to Weyoun.
Well, no matter what's happening, I think both Weyouns believe they are smarter than the Cardassians.
Oh, clearly.
So,
without a doubt. So, back in Ops, O'Brien bumps into Ezri in the turbolift. He's in trouble. Kira pulls him into Sisko's office to find that Sisko's desk is missing. And Nog used his authorization code to trade the desk for the stabilizer.
Do you know what this reminds me of? Did you ever... We've talked about this before on another show. I believe it's called the blue paperclip experiment. It was a thing they did on Craigslist. It was this person who started with a little blue paperclip. And the goal was they were going to trade it up for a house. They were somehow going to get this paperclip, turn this paperclip to a house. And they like documented their whole... And it happened.
Yeah, well, the story is definitely like that.
Yeah. The Great River will provide.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that, but yes. So, Nog has used O'Brien's... Yes, I already said that.
It seems very anti-Ferengi, right? Well, I guess they're doing a good deal.
Well, it's
pay
super
for it?
Well, I think this concept is super Ferengi. I think it's not necessarily like the concept of the Great River or the Great whatever is such a naive Ferengi concept that I think speaks to something wrong with our society, but I'll get into that later.
Okay.
How's that teaser? So Nog explains that he just loaned Sisko's desk to a superfan. He likes to collect holo photos of himself sitting behind the desks of famous Starfleet captains. Usually he just sneaks into their offices, but with a war on, it's hard for him to get away. But of course he doesn't have the stabilizer. Nog has set up a long and complicated set of transactions, and he is trusting in the great material continuum. He says the continuum is real. You see, there are millions upon millions of worlds in the universe, each filled with too much of one thing and not enough of another. The great continuum flows through them all like a mighty river, from have to want and back again. And if we navigate the continuum with skill and grace, our ship will be filled with everything and our hearts desire. And I'm like, it's a cute idea. It is a capitalism fever dream. It's like Ferengi trickle-down economics. It's a sweet idea, but it has never worked that way in any of human space, time, or existence. It's like, oh, if we have an abundance of things, it will be equally distributed. Ah! To which, that is what I have to say about
okay, yeah.
the continuum.
I think for the only problem I have with it in its form here is the artificial ticking clock of it. I think that I like his wheeling and dealing skills, but the length of the shortness with which he does it is a little artificial. But
whatever, it's fun. Like, I think it's a fun. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a really fun, really cute storyline. I love that what it does for Nog. I love Nog being able to do with it. I just think that the concept here is very naive.
I just like everybody being pissed at O'Brien. I think it's just
O'Brien must suffer. So back on the runabout, Odo and Weyoun.
This poor guy's family is never there.
No,
he's just by himself. His only friend ditches him any chance he gets. Anytime something with boobs walks by. It's poor guy. His authorization, he's been swatted. His authorization code is throughout the galaxy. Poor guy.
Yeah. It's
Let's not forget he spent 70 years in Brain F Pit prison.
Oh my God! And he's like,
he killed his daughter's like a wild beast.
That's right. He had to kill his adult daughter. Oh God, yeah, no, he's had a rough go of it. So, back in the runabout, Odo and Weyoun are still in transit. Weyoun wakes up from a nightmare. He knows he's about to get interrogated, but hopes Odo will be the one to do it. Interesting idea. Then they get a proximity, which is a great idea, right? You know, to like interrogate someone and have your interrogator be someone the person considers a god. It rarely happens. But they get a proximity alarm. The Jem'Hadar has caught up and is immediately firing on them. And Weyoun knows the Jem'Hadar won't fire on a founder, so he tries to communicate with them, but the frequencies are jammed. Smart. So Weyoun teaches Odo the weaknesses in the Jem'Hadar ship, and they're able to destroy it. Really useful, and probably not a great design to have a weakness that a runabout could take a Jem'Hadar warship. But, you know, every Death Star has to have whatever the vent was.
Well, and it's like a really easy, fast way for him to reaffirm his utility,
Right.
potential utility.
His loyalties. Yep.
I mean, the thing this episode really succeeds at, I think within like 11 seconds of starting this episode, once the Weyoun entered it, I turned to Jen and was like, so he sacrifices himself at the end to protect Odo. Like, that's what has to happen. There's no way we're going to get him back to the station. Although, let me tell you, good guy Weyoun as a guest star, you can keep your Ezri Dax. That's what I would love for the rest of the season. You know what I mean? That would be incredible. But you know that wasn't going to happen, so...
Well, it basically becomes like the Blacklist.
Right. Yeah. So, man, some Spader. Anyway, Keith and I can't do a podcast unless Spader comes in the last season.
I have only ever seen any of those when I knew somebody on it or Jillian was auditioning for it.
It's just spadering.
Yeah, it's just spadering. Yeah.
But how can we tease out the drama of it, knowing inevitably how he's going to end up? And I think they're successful.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Odo says, "Congratulations, you just saved our lives." And Weyoun 6 says, "And murdered loyal servants of the Dominion. May the founders forgive me." Has it ever occurred to you that you believe the founders are gods because that's what they want you to believe? That they built it into your genetic code? And he says, and this is I love this line, it's so smart. Of course they did. That's what gods do. After all, why be a god if there's no one to worship you? Throwing down some wisdom. So back on Deep Space Nine, O'Brien discovers that Nog is now missing and has taken a runabout somewhere, again, using his password.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to that for a second. I think it's really clever that they have Odo in the god seat, who is so against, or is, I guess, maybe not against, but is
uncomfortable
and wrestling with the idea of the forced godship.
Mm-hmm.
And they have his partner, Kira, later in the episode, bookend that by being the one who says, they're just wormhole aliens to everybody else, but to me, because of my faith, I believe. It's like, perfect.
It is a fascinating exploration of faith, of all kinds, because so much of faith and religion is based upon the relationship you have with your God and what level of agency your God gives you in terms of your relationship with the God. Because almost every God, certainly in the Western culture, the God demands that you worship it. And in order to get you will be punished if you do not, and you will be rewarded if you do. Every Western God is the most insecure person, being I've ever heard. Because I will literally torture you for the rest of time if you don't believe in me. And what an insecure little baby.
Right.
And so through a sci-fi lens, you can see this in a safer way that doesn't offend people, right? That very concept, that very idea.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Anyway, God's motivations. What are they? Apparently, but Weyoun 6's point, most of the gods that I'm aware of, their purpose is to make people worship them. So, anyway, so O'Brien and Nog run into a problem because Martok is missing a case of blood wine that his wife bought him. Uh-oh. So back on Cardassia, Damar and Weyoun find out that Odo destroyed the first ship, so they prepare to send more ships and fire on sight. But then, they are caught by the female changeling, which they immediately lie to her and hide the fact that Odo is on the runabout, which is a big swing, not necessarily for Damar, but for Weyoun.
You can see the stakes.
He's like, oh, no. But Damar notices something interesting. The female changeling's face is somewhat desiccated and wrinkly.
Well, he's not Sherlock Holmes, Keith. I mean, it's pretty clear there's a mole. It's not like he had a discerning eye.
AI upscaled, so. And he says, your face. And she says, I'm fine. But from now on, I want the temperature in these rooms lowered by 15 degrees. I don't care if the Cardassians love heat. And she literally fixes her face and exits. And but Damar has doubts that it's nothing. And guess what?
It ain't nothing.
It's not.
Yep.
It's Chekhov's face. So back on the runabout, Weyoun is trying to eat a slice of pepperoni with a chopstick. Hilarious. And apparently he's been eating for hours. And we get some interesting backstory. He doesn't taste anything. He says he's just going for textures. Says the Vorta's sense of taste is quite limited. Same with our eyes. About the only foods we really enjoy are kava nuts and ripple berries. I take it that was some result of your genetic programming. Oh, Keith, words, mouth, go. It's the founders' way of making sure we remember our past. You must know the story of how the founders created the Vorta. No, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me about it. The Vorta used to be very different from what we are today. We were forest dwellers, small, timid, ape-like creatures living in hollowed-out trees, and living out of fear of many predators that hunted us for food. But one day, a wounded changeling came stumbling through the forest, fleeing a mob of angry solids. Why were they chasing him? Doesn't matter. Solids have always feared and distrusted shapeshifters. You know that. A family of Vorta hid the changeling from his pursuers, and in return for saving his life, the changeling promised the Vorta that one day they would be transformed into powerful beings, and that we would become important part of a great new empire that would stretch across the galaxy. And the changeling kept his word, which is, So remind me, Mike, because I had this knowledge in my head before. Did we know this whole story?
It was news to me. No, yeah.
Because I feel like we had mentioned it in passing before.
But to be fair, I had forgotten they were clones. So.
Yeah, to be fair, he'd forgotten most of things. But what a fascinating backstory for the Vorta. Like, it's terrifying, and it makes sense. But then Weyoun spills some very important information. He says, Odo, there's something you need to know. A sickness has spread throughout the Great Link. The founders are dying. Oh, snap. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in Act 4, he continues. He says, I was summoned to a meeting by the female changeling, and she wanted to discuss troop deployments with me. Suddenly, her hands began to shrivel. It only lasted a second or two, but over the next few weeks, it's happened a number of times. It's like she's withering. And she told him that the entire Link is suffering from the disease, other than Odo. If we're unable to find a cure, you'll be the last of your kind. But at least you're not infected. The Dominion will survive. And Odo says, meaning what? Think about it. You have an opportunity to rectify the mistakes your people have made, to build a new Dominion based on cooperation, not conquest, on peace, not war, a new order under your leadership. So, boy, what a weird situation for Odo to be in here.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've just found out that everyone of your species has a fatal disease, it seems like. But you're also being offered the keys to fixing this whole situation, this whole war, this whole everything.
Yes, but I love his first response. Before he even allows himself to consider the weight of that, the gravity of that, he says, and what will your role be? Because his first thought is, oh, this is a ploy. This is, sort of a reverse coup, if you will. So,
right, a manipulation.
So I thought that was really, really great writing. At first I was a little upset because it felt, if this came later in the season, I think I would have been more put off, because it feels a little very Deus Machina, where it's like, oh, the big bad has a disease, a random disease we know nothing about. But since it's so early in the season, I feel like we have plenty of time to find out more about this and how it started and its ramifications and whatnot. But they've done such a great job of showing how great the Great Link is and how amazing they can share information and share. But we never discussed the downside of that, which is if one of them is tainted or they get sick or whatever. And maybe that's why they were so protective of keeping other quadrants out and having dominion over them, because it's like the Papua New Guinea, right? Like, you don't want to bring any disease over because it's going to run rampant through people.
They're in their COVID pod.
Right. So it's cool. So all in, pretty cool.
It certainly opens up a lot of questions, for sure.
But it's like, they keep doing, there's so many of these, right? We got the Ketracel White. What happens with these guys? We got a flaw there. Now we got sick things. A lot of openings for the good guys. Maybe a little less pew pew and a little more strategic boom boom.
Strategic boom boom. Yes.
I feel like Churchill over here.
I don't know.
Less boom, less pew pew and more boom boom. That's my Churchill. I've been working on.
Winston, are you on the show? I thought you were dead. Oh my God.
Whew.
What a get. What, we've had Obama on before. We've had Trump. We got Winston Churchill.
Zombie Churchill with no accent is pretty good get.
Wow. I can't wait to hear what he thinks of the episode when we get to the AlamarEmmys. So, this whole crazy concept for Odo is interrupted when 4 Jem'Hadar ships arrive. So they know they can't fight 4, so they hide in a frozen comet. And they turn off life support to become as cold as ice.
If you can't please him, freeze him.
Winston? You're really quippy today.
So
stupid. So, really cool, like, CG going through all of this, and, but Weyoun is gonna be cold. So back on Deep Space Nine, O'Brien has done a piss-poor job at creating a new desk for Cisco.
I guess that's
stupid.
the biggest they can do in the replicator and just wield it over.
I was gonna say, like, he could replicate this thing. Like, how did they create it in the first place? It's so silly.
So dumb. I won't even roll the wormhole, but...
No, it's ridiculous. Kira comes in and is not impressed, but Bashir hilariously has O'Brien's back after pointing out all the desk holes in the plan. Then Worf and Martok come in. They're pissed too, because they figured out that O'Brien's code stole his wine. Poor O'Brien, he's getting backed into a corner, can't hide behind a little desk. So on the runabout, it's been a while, and Weyoun is freezing, and Odo is pretending to be cold. So this I think is a real wormhole for me. And we've done this before, because when Quark and Odo climbed the mountain or whatever, was there something? There had to have been, otherwise we would have. There's something on that planet preventing Odo from shapeshifting. Is that true? The ill or something? Because if the shapeshifters, they take on the properties of whatever they turn themselves into. So Odo, as a humanoid, would be cold in this situation. He didn't need to stay that. So Odo was cold here by choice.
Yeah, but shouldn't he be hungry then too?
Well, yeah, well, that's a good point. Like, he doesn't need to breathe. He said, like, oh, we only have so much oxygen. Odo doesn't need to breathe. He doesn't have to work at any temperature. He can survive in the vacuum of space. So, like, why is he pretending that he's breathing, and why is he worried about being cold?
Well, he spent so much of his life with humans. Maybe it's more of a mimicry scenario.
Maybe he's just making Weyoun not feel bad about it. I don't know.
And if anything, they like the cold, right? Because she kept saying it's not hot in here. That's why melty.
I don't know.
Isn't that more his concern? I guess he can degenerate. He can buck it up in the ship, right? I was gonna say they've been out there for a long time.
They're not. I mean, I think they've been frozen for like an hour or so.
I knew. Yeah, but okay. Yeah, this is moot. You're right. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. But it's an interesting like the Odo's superpowers are so like unclearly defined and usually serves the function of the that-week story. So
this whole bit felt, I gotta say, this whole like point in the plot felt a little fillery, just like we have some time to kill, because and like here's what kind of programs do you have on the CG machine? We can do ice asteroids. All right, let's do that.
We need something for the trailer.
Yeah.
You gotta yeah,
because it doesn't really like further the plot or anything they discuss here.
No, it doesn't. You're right. It is fillery / give us something cool visually for the trailer. Now, acknowledging and accepting that, I still think it looks cool, and I'm glad. Oh
yes, yeah, for sure.
And it gives us an act break.
Yes,
which is also important. So what happens is the Jem'Hadar getting impatient. They get impatient and they start blasting the frozen chunks of ice. So they are forced to make a run for it. More cool CG. So in Act 5, they're starting to get their ass kicked, and the runabout is on fire. He puts out the fire, and then they contact Weyoun 7, which they obviously allowed them to do. They were probably blocking because I thought this was a wormhole, but then it's not. They're blocking the transmissions to the Jem'Hadar ships, but they can still communicate back to Cardassia. So Weyoun 6 realizes the gig is up. And when he contacts Weyoun 7, he activates his suicide chip in order to save Odo's life and the Dominion itself. Because in his mind, if all the other changelings die, Odo is then the Dominion. Which is
it's so interesting because, and we've seen it underutilized. What's cool is, even though their ethics or morality or what side they're on, it's clearly what separates the Weyouns here. Right. One thing that is ever present is their inability to be duplicitous with Odo. Although I guess that's not completely true because he was willing to have him killed, but because we totally trust him when he says, when Odo or Weyoun 7 kills himself, or 6,
yeah.
You know, he has to believe and know, because he is him basically, that they won't harm Odo once he sacrifices himself. That he will stand up to his side of the bargain. Odo, even though he doesn't believe in the godhood, they could be using him to get information from the Vorta left, right, and sideways. All he has to do is ask. They're not going to lie to him.
That's true. I mean, or certainly he's in a really unique position to elicit information.
Yeah, he should be ambassador of all this stuff.
Yeah, well, and then what are Odo's feelings about that?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, Garrick sure didn't like it. Remember we dealt. Garrick doesn't
right?
Yeah.
But also, Starfleet doesn't trust Odo.
Yeah.
So they might not put him into that position because they're afraid he's going to give them information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So complicated. So over Damar's objections, because Damar's like, blow him up anyway, because he might have told him all this stuff, Weyoun 7 calls off the ships. Odo is still a founder after all. And now that we know the female changeling is aware of this operation, if he were to kill Odo, she would find out. So
that's fair, yeah.
So we do Odo and Weyoun 6 sing A Little Fall of Rain. And he says, Weyoun 6 says, they say the voluntary termination is quick and painless. I'm afraid it's not true. And Odo says, I'll get you a pain suppressor. Says it won't be necessary, but there is one thing you can do for me. What's that? Give me your blessing. Here we put Odo in the uncomfortable position, but despite how uncomfortable he is with the role of being a god, Odo is merciful and gives Weyoun his blessing before he dies, which I think is the only ethical thing to do. So back on Deep Space Nine, of course, Nog's schemes have played out marvelously. He connected all the dots and returned Sisko's desk, got the stabilizer, and even improved Martok's wine with a better vintage. The famous 2309, of course. So back home,
you know what that always reminds me of is like, you remember, you didn't play them much, but there used to be games like called point and click adventures. And like instead of doing the walking around and pew-pewing, because they didn't really have graphics for that, you basically just had to solve puzzles. And these puzzles were usually like, okay, there's a hole in the wall. Mm-hmm. But you can't just like put a piece of gum in the wall, right?
Look hole.
You've got to
put thing in hole.
You've got
put
to
tongue in hole.
Make a thing. You've got to make a person. You've got to answer a riddle to the troll to make the troll fall asleep, so you can put the rubber in his mouth and then add a hot coal from the fire, which turns it into gum, and then have him snore so it chews it up, and then take it from the snoring mouth and place that into the wall, like this bizarre Rube Goldberg of nonsense. That's what we've got here.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah,
like my reservations about capitalism as a system that trickles down aside, it's super fun.
Yeah,
and satisfying, and of course. So lastly, back at home, Odo discusses what happened with Kira, and what she says, which also a fascinating way to button this up, that the last thing he saw, meaning Weyoun, was one of his gods smiling at him. If you ask me, he was a lucky man. Nerys, please. No, listen to me. I know to Starfleet, the prophets are nothing more than wormhole aliens. To me, they're gods. I can't prove it, But then again, I don't need to. My faith in them is enough, just like Weyoun's faith in you was enough for him. Fascinating concept, because faith is relative. But Odo says, now it appears the Vorta may have to learn to get along without their gods. Sorry, you're worried about your people. The changelings are dying and I can't help them. They're the enemy. A very dangerous enemy, now more than ever because they're desperate. I know this isn't easy for you, but you have to remember that they started the war, not you. And Odo finishes with, that's true, but I know now that whichever side wins, one thing is certain, I'm going to lose. Ending the episode on a very ominous note. But so many interesting threads to continue here from this episode. And we are going to continue the thread of this episode in a slightly less interesting way. There it is. There it is. It just gets better. It ages like a beautiful vintage, a 2309 maybe. Yeah,
I'd forgotten.
for sure. Mike, what was your best moment?
Man, I love Jeffrey Combs. I love every second he's on screen here. Good Weyoun, bad Weyoun, all the Weyouns. I'll give it his... I think his first moment where he's explaining his new morality about when he says, I first woke up and I recognized what the way that the Dominion was going about it was wrong. Basically, when his face turned.
Oh, interesting.
Because and Chancellor Jen said this as well. It seems and feels like a completely new realized character. It is Weyoun. It's in Weyoun makeup. It's the same actor, but it just seems like a completely different character. A lot of times you see people playing clones or people playing twins on screen, and they just are not unique individual characters. Michael B. Jordan does this great in Sinners, which came out this year.
So good.
And I feel like Jeffrey Combs achieves it here. So I'm going to pick that moment out to really just sort of symbolize this whole character.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, I downloaded the Reanimator series because I've actually never seen the thing he's most famous for.
Yeah, I've never seen it either.
Oh, well, and you've seen The Frighteners.
Yes.
Yes. Well, he's a big part in that. So, yeah. So, I think for me, it's his death moment, but not necessarily him. I love Odo's compassion to give him his blessing when he dies. And I just think it's such an, and Deep Space Nine really plays with this in a way that the other Trek series never have, and that is, again, the exploration of faith and what does it mean, and what about it is real, what makes it real, and from the God's point of view, does it have to be real? Or does it just have to be from the worshipper's point of view to make it real?
Yeah.
I don't know, but whatever it is, I thought was just an interesting moment there, and it makes me really like Odo. It's very, very kind and very compassionate of him to do, even reluctantly. So that's my favorite moment.
Okay, shall we?
Let's do some stem bolts.
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
All right, so follow me here. So
Let's go on a journey.
Let me just give you my sort of complaint up front. And we'll do it in a weird way. I was never a huge Seinfeld guy. I love Curb, but Seinfeld's still, even on rewatch, I appreciate it and respect it probably more than I enjoy it. But one thing they do excellently, and I just love it for it, is even the most tangentially connected B-plot, C-plot in that show somehow all ties back together into one thing. So when you when you talk about, hey, remember that, oh, this is wrong. when you remember that one Seinfeld episode, we both have the same brain.
Yep.
Oh,
Both
have
of
to do it
us.
the
I
other
was like,
way.
how long is he going to notice? How long is it going to take him to notice? And at the bottom, too, buddy.
Where's the bottom? Oh, that's me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man, our OCD. is just-
Stop trying to be taller than me. I'm taller than you.
So when you reference a Seinfeld episode, you generally remember all the plot points. Oh, that's the one where this happens, this happens, this happens.
Right.
In like at the end when we discuss Deep Space Nine as a series, and we talk about the episode where we learn where Weyoun made his face turn, and we learn about the disease, I will
Right.
not remember what the B plot was.
No.
Right.
No.
And that's often the case. In the bestest of the bestest episodes, there's either one focus or there's some sort of connection between the plots. So that bothers me, right?
Yep.
I don't think there's anything
Yep.
wrong with the B plot. Pretty funny. It's quippy, but it's the tonality of it is in a completely different episode and universe than this one, where there's gravitas and stakes and things happening. Huge reveals. Huge reveal. This sickness of it's huge.
Yeah. Enormous. Yeah.
So that is my big nit to pick. That's I don't know if it's endemic of the series and just kind of network television with everybody feeling we need to have multiple plots because we got to put some humor in here. We can't just let it. Anyway,
Right.
so that's it. That being said, Jeffrey Combs and Renee are just giving you masterclass level performances here. I mean, really great.
All of it under all of the makeup
Under
and
all of that.
prosthetics.
Yeah.
We forget.
And the new Weyoun is completely realized as a standalone character. The conflict in both of them is mutual. It's shared. It's completely different, but it's shared and wonderful. And if you really, I haven't had time, I literally just watched it. If you really explore the religious themes, it's even really interesting. But just seeing them struggle and exist together and work through some things together is just, it's like, imagine going to the movies. And, you know, sometimes we let ourselves really indulge at the movies. You get the big popcorn bucket, you get chocolate M&Ms, family size, but you ain't sharing. Who are we kidding? You get the 27-gallon soda. I'm not going to drink all of it. You got to drink the whole GD thing. But imagine if that experience was actually good for you. Like, what if that was healthy, right? That's what this feels like. I'm just indulging in these performances.
This show is healthy for you.
Yeah, I'm indulging in these performances, and it's not an indulgence because it's great acting. It's great storytelling. The writing is really good. There's some really great moments here of conflict and of unresolution. And even though we kind of know where it's going, I'm completely satisfied, and it still works. It doesn't feel contrived. It doesn't feel trite. It doesn't feel, with the exception of that one filler scene. But as you said, it's still, man. You know what? I think back to Next Gen. This is the little bit I've watched. Man, I wish they had these kind of pew-pews. I wish they had the ability to do, because it takes the filler stuff and makes it not feel that way, right?
Yeah.
So I really like it. I like, because the B story suffers a little bit, like I said, from a tonal inconsistency. But also you get those sort of moments like when we see Esri and you're like, oh, hey, thanks for picking up your paycheck this week, down the elevator. Oh, here's Ben, say a couple lines. All right, we'll see. And that just always feels like a shame. And for me, it feels double shame because I know this is the last season. So like, oh, that's all we get from Ben this week. I wish, every episode that doesn't have the full ensemble, especially after that baseball scene or baseball episode, just feels a little let down. That all said, this is pretty extraordinary, actually. This is a great episode. I think and it has stakes, and it has a meta arc. What's the word I'm looking for? Impact. Consequences.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm back in on the big thing. I want to know, is Odo going to be compelled to go meet up with help? What's happening, right? Could we use this as some sort of truce? Could we discover the serum to fix them and offer it as some sort of
Right.
a ceasefire scenario. I don't know. I'm all in. Keith, talk to me about my ratings this season thus far.
Thus far, you've got 3 of them in the 90s. The first 2, and Take Me Out to the Holosuite. Last week was your lowest at 70, and After Image you gave an 84.
This one, I'm back into the A's. Mike is swinging. 92 self-sealing stem bolts. That's a B++.
That's an A-, buddy.
Yeah, it's an A-.
Yeah. I agree with you on all parts, including the B story feeling fairly disconnected. It would have been great if they were thematically tied, but that's okay. It was delightful enough that it didn't matter. And I love Nog being useful, and again, the journey that Nog has been on. Just like what a fantastic journey, and what I like is he's the first Ferengi in Starfleet, right? And he is succeeding not because he is mimicking human behavior. He's not mimicking other Starfleet races. He is succeeding in Starfleet as the first Ferengi because he is using skills that he has as a Ferengi specifically. And I love that as a storyline. He's not mimicking other people. He is succeeding because he is being himself. And there is a damn lesson in that. I think what makes this episode interesting intellectually is, of course, the exploration of faith and gods and worship, and there's one other element to the faith and gods part of this that I just thought of, and that is, again, with my understanding of it being skewed by being in a Western culture, so I'm much more familiar with Western religions than many others. But one of the things that most Western religions have is that their gods are both omnipotent, but also invincible, right? Judeo-Christian God can't die, and like there's no danger. Like, I mean, you could do it like the Greek gods. They were able to kill each other, but we weren't able to kill them, and so on and so forth. But what makes this very interesting for Weyoun is that his gods, he knows them to be fallible, and he knows them to be vulnerable. His gods can die. And he's facing down the concept of them all dying. And so I imagine for people of faiths of where the gods cannot be damaged or die or harmed in any way, shape, or form, how crazy would it be to see your god have an illness? Now, of course, in Judeo-Christian, you had Jesus, but he didn't really, it's complex like this. But this is like a permanent illness and death, and what a crazy mind F that has to be for the Vorta. And for Weyoun specifically, he's the only one who knows. So the Jem'Hadar aren't worrying about this. He can't talk to the other Vorta about this. He's holding on to this idea that my gods can literally die. What a crazy and interesting idea. And to think that there's one who might survive, and let me throw myself towards Odo because he's the one who's going to survive. And is that part of the reason why he defected?
I didn't even think about that till you just said that. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
You go in search of your god, and if your god, like, you go to the one that's going to make it, and you start to reflect the morality of the god who's going to make it.
Not only that, but like if you've got, you set, it's like, let's parallel to the Egyptians where there's a multi deity system. But then you find out that, like, of all of these gods that I worship, they're all going to die except one. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Vis-a-vis, that's God.
Well, yeah, and so you start taking
monotheism,
on the characteristics.
Right?
Yeah, polytheism with monotheism. And so, he's starting to take on the characteristics of this. And so, I think he mentions that he had this moral objection right from when he was cloned. But how soon after that did he find out that they were dying?
How do they know that Odo's not sick? They can't know for sure.
I guess they don't. They don't. So, I mean, their intelligence is good, but you still don't know for sure. So, Anyway, I just thought that was a really, like, there's so many layers to this.
When
And
you,
it's
now
so
that you mention it,
complicated.
the Bajorans also have seen their gods die. They've seen the wormhole kind of blow up. They've seen...
Or at least they've been in danger.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, honestly, like once you hop out of the Western religions,
Yeah.
when you go into polytheism, there's almost always the risk of danger, and you also
In fact,
they disagree with each
yeah,
other. So there's
infighting,
no
yeah.
universal source of right and wrong. So it's a much more negotiable. So that's sort of what we're representing here. Anyway, it's really interesting. It's a great episode. I really enjoyed all the performances, and it's very much a ... episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like we tell a complete story here, but like, wow, is this an important piece of the big puzzle that we're unfolding here? So super fun, enjoyed it. I wrote it down before you said it. Also going to give it a 92.
Oh, great.
So in the real world, this got an 8.2, which is episode 36 out of 173. Next week, we'll be talking about Once More Into the Breach. If you would like to be complicit in a crime, join us at patreon.com/K&M. We will see you back here next week. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine.
Nobody gets convicted of anything anyway.
Yeah, it's true, there's no laws.
Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/K&M.
But your partner's been double donged. The double dong.
You lost me at the double dong. Who doesn't love a double dong conversation?
Double
dong. How would you do double dong?
This spoiler warning is well after the double donged. If you're lacking a dong and you're looking for a double dong, patreon.com/K&M can service both those needs.